You know, there's something people don't always realize about acting. It's not just about the performance, it's understanding people and the people who spend their lives doing it. You know, they start to see things differently. They notice what others miss, they understand what others overlook. And over time, they don't just learn how to play a character, they learn how to help others find theirs. Now, my guest today has spent decades doing exactly that. Stephen Burhoe has been working as an actor for more than 45 years, starting in theater, moving through stunt work, television, and national commercials. But what's interesting isn't just where he's been, it's how he got there. He didn't start out chasing the spotlight, he started out wanting to direct. And somewhere along the way, he stepped into an acting class, just to understand what actors go through. And he got cast. He stepped on a stage, and that night, he heard something that changed everything. Laughter, applause. Just like that, the path shifted. From there, the work became the life. Thousands of performances, from live stunt shows to television appearances, even comedy sketches on The Tonight Show. But like a lot of real careers, it didn't move in a straight line. An injury forced a craft. He went deeper into it. He trained under the legendary acting coach Jeff Corey and eventually found something else entirely. Not just acting, but teaching. He went on to build his own studio, training actors of all ages, many of whom would go on to work professionally. And over time, he became known not just as an actor, but as someone who helps others become one. Because that's the thing about this craft. It's not just about being seen, it's about learning how to see. Today, we're talking about the work, the journey, and what it really takes to step into a role and make it feel real. This is my conversation with Stephen Burhoe. Today, we're talking with Stephen Burhoe. How are you, Steve?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Now, the reason I wanted to have you on today is you have been in the film industry for a minute, and you've seen a lot of things. You've seen people with dreams, you've seen them come true, you've seen them crash, but you've taken an interesting approach to everything, and that's not only are you an actor, but you're also an actor's coach. And
Well, actually, I started as a filmmaker,
okay,
and I was in a community college being taught by a very good filmmaker who has subsequently directed Selena and El Norte, named Gregory Nava. He was very young then and hadn't made his first film, but he was teaching this program. And I thought, if I'm going to be a filmmaker, I need to know what actors do. So I went and took an acting class. First class, they said, you need to audition for all the plays here. That happens in the first 2 weeks of the semester. So you need to do that. You don't have to take the part, but you need to understand what an actor goes through, that's why I was taking the class. Understand what the actor goes through so I can relate to them as a director. Well, it happened that afternoon. They were having the first series of the auditions. I went and I got the part. And it was a play called Tartuffe. And I took the part because it was an extra 3 units, and everybody said it was an easy A. And somewhere during the rehearsal period, we were blocking something, and I was actually sitting in the audience of this little theater watching people do this, and we're all putting our 10 cents worth in. And I said, gosh, this is fun, just fun. And then I, during the rehearsals, I realized I'm not very good at this. And opening night, though, I heard something I hadn't heard before. I heard applause and I heard laughter, and I couldn't sleep that night at all. And I had a scholarship throwing the discus at some college up in Oregon that I was going to go to the next year. And no, I ended up changing my major, changing everything, went and became a drama major at San Diego State. And it went from there. I got more involved in acting than I did directing. I've come full circle. I'm doing a lot of filmmaking now,
right.
short films. But the bug bit, And I improved very quickly because I loved it.
Hmm.
And I had also some very good teachers. So it took me a while to get out of college. When I was in college, I did my first professional Shakespeare play. I did
Okay.
my first commercial.
Okay.
I did another play professionally, even while I was still in school. And San Diego was a great town for that in those days. And came up to LA right after I graduated. And within 6 months, I was working full time in an amusement park doing a stunt show because I'm a big guy. And I had a full beard and long hair, and I fit the character in this stunt show, this Western stunt show. And after that, I moved to another amusement park.
Okay.
And basically, I spent my first 10 years out of college having a full time gig on stage. So I didn't have to do some of the other things that people go through. It's very difficult to break into acting.
Right.
Um, I'm just, I love it.
Well, and you've had a lot of film roles as well. It's not just stage roles. You've been in a lot of film roles too, right?
And a number, not, I wouldn't say it's a great big number, but more of my film work has been going back to behind the camera and writing and directing and producing my own little shorts. I've won awards in almost every film I've made. Uh, I've done a lot of, because I teach kids.
Right.
I had an agent in Los Angeles who said, yeah, I was training with a great acting coach at the time, a man named Jeff Corey. And
Mhm.
I interviewed with this agent who had been pursuing for 6 months. And after I started with her for a while, she came to me and she was known as the best kids agent in LA. And
Okay.
she said, would you help come teach the kids? And I was, you sure you got the right guy? And she said, I think so. And I'm like, okay. So I went there, and it turns out I'm, half a big kid myself. And the kids loved me. And I just didn't know that this was something I had. And I started teaching with the kids, and then I went did adults. And after Jeff died, I started my own studio. I called it the Player's Craft. He called his the Actor's Craft.
Okay.
So it was an homage to him, what I was doing. And I teach very much like he did, but I can't be him. And he'd be the first one to say, you can't be me. Actually, Michael Chekhov, coach, told him, you can't be him. And it was one of the first things he said to me, because I asked him when I auditioned, I said,
Right.
I actually want to teach. And he said, oh, wonderful. Tell me something about yourself. Well, what does that have to do with acting? He goes, everything, or teaching, rather. It says everything. You share what you know, you share what you've learned, and you have to do it on an individual basis. The greatest thing I got from him was teach people, not things.
Okay.
Uh, and so I take an individual approach to teaching people. And uh, coaching and teaching has filled in the gaps when I don't get work, when I don't get the stage fix anymore, but I get to get up in front of people, and it's half an entertaining thing in the class anyhow, for me
Okay.
anyhow.
Well,
I
you're working with actors as you're helping them to perfect whatever it is they're doing.
It is, and it's funny because I just finished a class on Zoom, and I told them I love watching actors work and giving their own interpretation to material. In this case, it was something I'd written,
Hmm.
and they were all different. And I'm not one of those actor directors that says it's got to be this way. I
Right.
want to see what they can bring to it. And when I do, and it's something I wrote, and I go, I didn't even think of that when I wrote it.
Right.
It's just it lights. I love it.
Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because I remember recently there's a scene that you have written that's about a dog walker, and
Hmm.
in that dog walker, there's a number of things that go on. It's with a detective. There's a dead person. Yeah, I mean, it's a short scene. It's not real long. When you were doing that, and then when you see actors that play those parts and they interpret it very differently than what you had written it, what do you kind of think of when that happens?
First of all, I appreciate the creativity. Now, you already know I'm the kind of coach that's going to say if that doesn't work, I'm going to
Right,
tell you.
right.
I tell every time I start a new student, I say I'm going to pick on you. It's my job, but I'm on your side. I want you to succeed. and I want them to expand and experiment. But I'm also going to tell them, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. It's self-indulgent, or it's not playing into the whole scene and so forth. But when I see somebody bring something brand new to it that I had not even conceived of, I love it. I absolutely think that's just, yes, experiment, explore. You have to be a good, because there is an artistic part of acting. There's also, a lot of people just get a part because they got the look, and that's
True.
fine.
True.
A lot of actors are one-trick ponies. I had a wonderful coach and teacher named Basil Hoffman,
Mm-hmm.
who said he called them slick actors. I call them bag of tricks actors. They do the same thing all the time. They have this little shtick they use,
Sure.
but they're working. And if it works, use it.
Right.
One of my biggest regrets in my career is when I had the long hair and the beard,
Mm-hmm.
I was sent out for bad biker number 3 or something like that all the time. And I'm like, I can do Shakespeare. I'm and it kind of frustrated me.
Sure.
And, and that was a mistake finding that. I
Mm.
should have gone with it, show me the money to an extent. But usually those things, the more you work, leads to more work
Right.
and different and a variety of things. That was a mistake on my part. And when I see people say, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, it's like, if it's not killing you, I mean, I have certain standards too, but
Sure.
you go for it. Get the work, get the experience. Everything in this business is new every time. That's
Mm.
what I love about it. So there's a new experience, a new opportunity to learn.
Well, and you see, like you said, you teach a lot of kids, but you have a lot of adults as well. And
Yes.
all of them come with their own dreams and aspirations and things of that nature. What does it mean to you when you see some of these new faces, whether they're young or old, in your class, and they say, "This is what I want to do. This is what I think I want to do. This is," what is your first thing to them?
Well, actually, my first thing is don't bring me your dreams, bring me your goals.
Okay.
Because you're not going to get to that dream, that thing you think you want to get to, if you don't have goals. And there's long-term goals and short-term goals. And let's learn how to do a cold reading, for example. Let's learn some of the basic things you need to know.
Right.
I'm not going to turn away from the camera like that. I'm
Sure.
going to hear, at least for
Right.
an audition.
Right.
So many things, technical things and artistic things to learn. You need to fulfill those, and then you will get there. You
Okay.
just persistent. I tell them it's persistence, patience, and professionalism.
Mm.
And those are the things that make for a long career. There's a lot of people. I get a lot of them. I got to, I want to be up for this right away. And this,
Sure.
okay, you may think you're good, and maybe you are, but you not. There's experience involved. It's like the difference between book knowledge and wisdom.
Right. Right. And speaking as someone who's also in this realm, and for our listeners, you're one of my coaches. You're my coach. I'll say it that way. You're my only coach. Um, I tried to soften it a little bit, but anyway, um, and there's a wide variety of people that you do coach, and they are all at different levels. And some, I think, probably think more highly of what they can do than probably some other people think. Um, but you get people who come to you and they say, "Look, I want to learn this craft and I don't know anything." Where do you start with them?
Right at the beginning, I've got a great class that I always do this for free every 6 weeks or so. It's called the famous Fig Newton. Um, and I explain to them the rules of the road, the technical things first, upstage, downstage, all those kind of things. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
And show them the fun of it, and then the different things we apply to a character to make it truthful,
Okay.
because it's got to be truthful. I uh, I don't really do levels in my classes. I've
Right.
got beginner and advanced, and I don't really even like those terms because we're all at our own level at any
Sure.
given time. And I'll tell you, getting older, you learn more about yourself when you learn more about acting. because a good part of acting is understanding the human condition. And the more you do that, the more you can bring to it, and understanding other people who think differently too. That's terribly important.
Well, let's talk about that for just a minute, because I think that it's not only important for the actor themselves, but also for anybody who's trying to write a script, who's trying to direct, who's trying to be the cinematographer or anything like that. The human condition is what we're watching in entertainment when we watch a performance, right? Whether it's on stage or on film.
Well, it
And
is. That's the whole part of theater.
and if you have somebody who says, "Oh, I don't need to know that," do you ever get students like that? They say, "I just want to do
Oh yes.
whatever it is." And then how do you
Well, I
handle
get.
that?
Well, you already know I'm pretty straightforward with people. I have an exercise that involves a Shakespeare monologue. I don't want to do Shakespeare. It's like, well, you know what? The way I approach it is, I don't care if you want Shakespeare. There's words in there. You're going to have to look them up. And there's words in a drug commercial you may have to look up or get the proper pronunciation, or legal jargon for one of these lawyer shows, medical shows. It's the same thing. And so you can't be afraid to learn new things. I also get people, I don't want to do commercials. Well, I'm going to commercials. First of all, union commercials pay really well. They're fun. You're only there for a day or two usually. And so you're in and out. It's a mini movie. And I have seen some of the most creative things I've ever done have been in commercials
Okay.
where they, it's a 30-second spot, but you're there all day and you're trying different things. And if it's a good director, they're letting you do different things.
Okay.
And then they decide what they're. I look at commercials as a unique art form because it has the beginning, middle, and end aspect that any film
Right.
or play would have, but
Right.
it also has create the need, fulfill the need, call to action. And you got to get that in there. And it can be some broad character that's almost a caricature,
Sure.
or it can be very truthful. It just depends on what you're selling. And I find it actually, I teach a lot of audition techniques, and
Right.
most of that goes back to when I was doing all those commercials, because 90% of booking a commercial is the audition
Okay.
and doing the commercial. I ran into people in rooms and you'd start talking maybe Shakespeare or something, and
Mm.
I'm just I don't know anything about that. I just do commercials, and that's all they do. But
Okay.
they understand the audition process,
Sure.
and these were people that were recognizable from commercial after commercial, and
Mm.
they're not actors. You don't necessarily have to be an actor to do that. Having
Okay.
said that, if you are an actor, you broaden your range a lot.
Right.
And as an actor, I want to know how to do that commercial. I want to know how to do an MC type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's a wide variety of different types of actors, very stylized acting.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Nickelodeon or Disney, they're up and over the top.
Right.
Uh, the trend is for very truthful acting, which I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But what I get is age people coming in and they want to do this. You can't do that on
Guilty.
camera. Yeah, well, you want to do this. And I'll get people that have been on stage and haven't really done filming, and you finally get them to where they go, I feel like I'm doing nothing. Yeah, almost. I mean, the wheels are still turning, but the physical things are much more confined, and it actually becomes fun after you understand it because you're
Right.
still manipulating an audience. You do. There's a manipulation of audience
Sure.
that goes on, and that's where those amusement park shows, because you do. At one park, we were doing kind of the last bastion of vaudeville with street sketches,
Okay.
and you learn timing, hearing the audience, all these different things. And then at the larger show I did, you do 4 to 7 performances a day in a 2,000 seat house. You learned how to make them laugh. You learned how to kick that show in the rump if it wasn't getting them to laugh.
Sure.
Um, and there's no substitute for that. It's just, this is where film only actors, they don't understand holding for the laugh and letting it land, things like that.
Well, that's a really good point too. Do you get many folks who are comedians or have done comedy? Because it seems to me that comedians have that innate sense over somebody that just wants to be an actor. Is that true or not? Or
Yes and no.
okay,
They do understand the timing usually, because that's an audience thing. They say you can't learn timing, and I've ran into people that can't learn timing. But for the most part, if you can do it, where did you learn it? I picked it up from all those sketch comedy shows I watched in the '60s growing up.
sure, right.
I mean, we don't have those anymore, which is a shame.
Mm.
But what I found is they can't be truthful.
Okay,
A lot of that's why you see some stand-ups that
right,
work okay. Um, Robin Williams was a great example. He could do that big over the top, but he could bring it down. I mean,
right.
he was a seriously well-trained actor.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he trained with my coach, Jeff Corey,
That's awesome.
after coming out of Juilliard. Uh, and so did Carol Burnett.
Okay,
And they understand the difference between the sketch comedy, you're over the top.
right.
It's about timing, and then the truthful acting that we need, especially today in modern film and television, depending on the project, of course.
Sure.
But I run into a lot of people that train only improv or stand-ups. They're always looking for a punchline,
Okay.
always looking for that, and that's not necessarily what it's about, uh, especially in something theatrical.
Right. Right. Well, it's kind of funny those two that you mentioned with Robin and Carol, and I have a third name I always throw in there for somebody who does that kind of stuff is John Ritter was that way as well.
Oh, he was wonderful.
Yeah.
He
And
was absolutely, and he had the other element that the a little bit of Carol Burnett had. Not so much Robin Williams. He was frenetic in his, but John Ritter could do slapstick,
yes.
the physical. And there's somebody made a top 10 list of what's funniest.
Hmm.
And at the very top was slapstick, because you don't have to speak the language to see what's funny.
Right.
His falling over the couches and all that other stuff he did in the early days was wonderful. Had a great sense of timing. It was a loss that he died so young.
Yeah. Yeah. When
Truly.
when you get referred someone, how does that normally work? Because again, on here on the channel, we deal with a lot of people who have been either they're have a dream or they have a goal and they're trying to get there, right? And or they've just been plugging away at whatever that goal is, whether it's writing a novel, whether it's writing a screenplay, whether it's acting on stage or on screen. How do you get people to come to you? Are they referred? Do people just hear about you and come and then you welcome them in? How does that work?
I do a bit of advertising, just free stuff on the internet, the social media things. But for
Mhm.
the most part, yeah, they're referred to me or they've heard of me. Um, and then they always say they don't have any money. And I'm
It's always
actually,
true. It's always
well,
true.
I'm an actor. I wrote all the time myself. But, and I chose that,
Sure.
honestly. There's a lot of things I could have done and made a lot of money. But I love this so much. I understand. I've spent 4.5 years being homeless.
Okay.
Uh, it happens, and not that I would encourage that or want to do that again, but um, it, it did happen, and what I would say, it goes back to those 3 Ps: the persistence and the patience,
Right.
and especially the patience. And for example, I have a student. She was with me for 8 years before she booked anything.
Oh
She went
wow.
through 2 agents, didn't really get anything,
Mm.
and then her first role was a scene with Matthew McConaughey.
That's
She's a wonderful actor,
that,
and since then she's done quite well. Um, you never know what it takes to get that first one,
right.
and to get to that SAG card level, which I don't encourage people to join right away. There's a lot of non-union work now that's pretty good. You
Okay.
need to build up those. The, we have to volunteer for films and stuff to get a reel,
Okay.
to get a resume built, and so forth, to prove that we've been on set and we can do what's real and be professional.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come to me, I had another student, they'd done their first thing in background. They loved it. It's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be that star. And I literally was laughing. And she came to class, and after the first class, she said, maybe I ought to hold off a little bit on this and just train.
Right.
And you hear about these actors that are just totally natural and they don't take classes.
Hmm.
Well, they're very between. Most actors, even the ones that are big names, they still train
Right.
and they keep it quiet. But you have to, it's, you liken it to a sport. If you don't know the basics,
Hmm.
how to do layup, how to do free throws, things like that in basketball, you know,
Right.
and if you don't practice all week, you're not going to be any good.
Right.
You got to keep it up and try new things, hit new levels. And my goal as a coach, I can get a little bit of improvement, a
Right.
little new understanding every single class out of somebody. It may not be earth shattering that week, but it's like a snowball. It builds up and it builds up. And one day you'll see the light and you go, wow, that's a whole different person than we had 6 months ago.
I was going to say, do you
And it's
see a
fun to
lot of
watch.
those? Do you see a lot of those changes in your students?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um,
And because of Jeff saying, teach people, not things,
mhm.
I get to what they need.
Okay.
And I also embrace the original core meaning of educate, to educate, to bring out that which is already inside.
Okay.
And I think that's what people don't realize is we act every day. We don't act the same at work as we do at a party, as we do at church or whatever.
True.
And it's in that sense is very natural. But the understanding of how we research a character and put ourselves in the given circumstances that are within the script,
Right.
that that takes some knowledge, and I do see that a lot, and I'm pretty good at bringing out that with beginners and getting them to a higher level so that they can go get an agent and get started. I
Mm.
pride myself in that, and I think that comes from working with kids.
Okay. Okay. How, you said something right there. How important is it in the film industry in particular, maybe not as much for stage, but still on stage? How important is getting to the level to where you can actually get an agent? And how important is that agent in someone furthering their acting career?
I have booked myself on things in the days.
Hmm.
Um, I don't bother with that. I let the agent do the heavy lifting there. Um, it takes a while to get to the agent level. Some people you can get an agent quickly, but it's going to be a talent development agent because they know what they're looking at.
Sure.
And oh, there's a lot of raw talent here, but what are you going to do on set? And what happens when that camera comes right up there? And they get
Hmm.
pretty close sometimes with that. It'll make you nervous. You have to get past that.
Hmm.
There's no substitute for experience. And you can get some of that. You can get a lot of that in class if it's done right.
Hmm.
But that's one reason class. I get people that want private lessons. I say, no, you need to have people around because,
Right.
well, I'm not going to do stage. It doesn't matter. Go on set and see how many crew members are behind that camera looking at you. It's there's a whole bunch of people and they're watching you. One of the most disconcerting things about this business is the audition because you're being judged.
Right.
And if you don't want criticism or rejection, wrong business.
Right. Right.
What you also that's never personal,
Right.
almost never anyhow. It's a professional choice. Do you look right? It isn't even necessarily about your audition. You can have the best performance, but you don't look like the person who's playing your brother.
Yeah.
They're going to find somebody who does.
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
And it's kind of funny you talk about how much of an audience you're going to have, no matter what the production is, whether you're on stage or whether you're on film, and whether you have a scene with someone else or it's just you. There was a couple of times in recently I filmed Vengeful, as you well know, and there was one scene that was supposed to be a couple of us, but it turned out because there was an illness that went through everybody that it was just me that day, right? So everybody, it seemed like you're like, oh, everybody's just there for me today, but they were all paying attention to what I was because it was a walk and talk,
Yeah.
right? And so
Well,
you're 40
I
people.
mean, I did I did a film where I was with Sybil Shepherd, a scene
Hmm.
with her, and she came and did her things and then left. And now I'm going to do my lines, and they put a stand in who happened to be one of my students in there, and I'm reading to somebody else.
Wow.
But you don't see that. That's the beauty of film and editing and
Sure.
how you put things together.
Sure.
But that happens a lot. The last thing I did, I could not physically look at the person I was playing with
Hmm.
because if I looked off, they wanted me in close to the camera. They had the matte box around the lens. And they put a
Hmm.
piece of tape on there and played the tape.
Okay.
Okay, so she's behind the camera where I can't see her because all that myriad of people are there,
Right.
and I'm just a piece of tape. That's the reality. It's film and television. It's an illusion,
Right.
and it's a beautiful illusion sometimes. And I love this art form. And again, it's never the same. And there's all kinds of things. I wish we had better scripts and productions these days. Um, that may come around. I think you're going to see a lot more independent films because these big budget ones are losing money.
They are.
So,
And we're in New Mexico right now as we film this, and New Mexico is one of those states with a lot of independent filmmakers.
oh
And
yeah. And it's funny. I came here going out of homelessness. I wanted to get back into the business. I'd been out for a little while. Uh, and I determined I didn't want to be in LA anymore. I
mm,
grew up and I just didn't want to be there. But I wanted to get back in the business. I looked around and Atlanta and New Orleans, New York, and all the different places. And I don't like huge cities. So New York was out. And everywhere else had humidity.
right.
I don't do it with humidity. So I came here. Plus, I'd been doing the cowboy things in the stunt shows. I figured they'd be doing Western. They had just wrapped up Breaking Bad,
Okay.
and I saw the last episode or one of the last season shows. I'd never seen it before, and I saw that. I go, well, this is really cool.
Right.
And so I came here, sight unseen, and it's been 12 years now, and I haven't looked back. I love it here, and I have as a filmmaker,
Hmm.
20 plus films. I just hit the ground running, and I got here, like I said, sight unseen, no job. Well, I did have a job that was going to start in the summer, which was teaching a kids camp.
Okay.
They couldn't believe somebody with my resume of teaching was going to come out and do this. But I walked into an academy, an acting academy here in town,
Mm,
and I wanted to find out who's doing headshots. Find out. I think make ends meet. I'd start doing background work,
sure.
and uh, they said, "Why don't you take a class here?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, I owned my own studio in California." They just went, "You're you're a coach, a teacher? Yes. Could you come back with a resume?" I got one in the truck. 2 days later, I was hired and teaching for them, and I was there for years.
Very cool.
And uh, it, it hit. I didn't think I was ever going to teach again after that stint, but it just clicked, and I was doing kids again.
Right.
Uh,
They love you.
and they hadn't seen me with kids.
Right.
You get these ones. Oh, that was wonderful. I don't do that with kids either.
Right.
I teach, and the thing is, kids will listen to you, and sometimes too well because they don't get. But they will do what you ask them to do. I get parents coming and saying, "How'd you get them to do that?" I can't get them to do that. Well, I couldn't get my kid to do that either. There's a natural
Right.
headbutting thing between parents and kids. But I've also had Down syndrome kids, autistic kids, um, that the parents are going, "How'd you get them to do that?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just teaching acting."
Right.
But I do know one thing: you're giving them excuses.
Mm,
You're telling them. I'm about explanations over excuses, and the kids feel that or hear it or something, and they will try because they want to do well. They want to please me as a coach and so forth.
right.
Um, I have done some interesting things. There was a girl, I don't know what her condition was. Um, excuse me. Her dad was a student of mine,
Hmm.
and she was all of five.
Okay.
And I had two twins who were very successful in the day. And that was it in this class. And I said, bring your girl. He was there to take the class after that for adults. And this little girl had about a 7 at the most word vocabulary.
Okay.
I don't know what the condition was or whatever, but she would watch the other kids and you come up and try it. And she'd bounce up there and then she'd get very frustrated because she couldn't say the words.
Right.
And the parents of the twins were there sitting over here. And this great big macho Colombian guy who was the father of this kid. And I said, okay, you've been here a couple of weeks. You've seen it do the commercial. You don't have to tell me the words. Show it to me. Right. Show me what's going on.
Right.
And she started doing that. And all of a sudden, the words started coming.
Oh, wow.
And she's doing this commercial. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I look over, and the mother and father of the twins and the dad, they're all in tears.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh, yeah, she's speaking. All I'm doing is teaching acting. But somehow, when you let that happen, they come out. And I've had it with Down syndrome kids, autistic kids. The autistic kids are usually very bright, but they're perfectionists. And that's one of the things you have to understand about both filmmaking and acting. There's no such thing as perfection. There may be better a little bit or worse or just plain more interesting, but there isn't perfection. And that's what's wonderful about it.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that story. I'm down to just a couple of minutes here. Any advice that you would give anyone, wherever they are on their journey, beginning, middle, end, what advice would you give them?
For parents, first, I would tell them acting as a career is not for everybody. I get it. But I think acting training is. The whole research, reading, and find out why we research things, and find out how powerful reading and understanding things is, public speaking, all the different things that I throw in, interview skills. Mm-hmm. Speak to the eye, shake hands. I look at the way I teach kids as more life lessons than just acting. As far as adults, give it a shot. Understand there is rejection involved, and if you really want it, you're going to have to sacrifice some things. And that may mean a living. Having said that, if you want it, you got to be able to either walk away or have some flexibility in your job to go to the auditions where you don't go to them so much anymore. It's self-tape, which is actually beneficial to the actors. But it's decide whether you really want it, and what is the reason you want it? Is it because you love it, or you want people to see you and look at me? That's a poor reason to get into acting. It really is. Right. I do it because go back to that first performance where I heard this. It's like, whoa, this is cool. Right. Honestly, the best drug in the world is audience for me.
Steve, thank you so much. It's going to cut us off here in just a second. So,
all right.
Kind of where we're at. I appreciate you, sir. And I will see you, tomorrow at this point.
All right.
We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.